Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me on my program. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you are joining me from any part of the world, I thank you very much for your contributions on this channel. Please kindly subscribe if you have not subscribed, and also click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. In this channel, I bring information to your doorstep. I bring news from all channels, from every angle. Things that have to do about the world, things that have to do about Africa, more especially Nigeria. I bring it to your doorstep, some information that you ignore, some information that you cannot be able to come across. I look for them, I bring it to your doorstep for you to see. Every video you see on this channel is for educational purpose.
From what you have seen.
Well, I don't think that decision, so to speak, is a good news to APC, and I will respectfully differ from my senior brother here by giving you a scenario very similar to this, but the party chose to do the right thing. In 2014, the party was very desperate to win election. President Muhammadu Buhari, then General Muhammadu Buhari, was to choose a vice presidential candidate. And at the time, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the strongest and most influential politician in the party who brought a lot to the table. And there was this idea that President Buhari, then General Buhari, and Asiwaju were to fly the ticket together. Now, that was a situation where, let's say, General Buhari was to make a decision based on fear. That, look, if I don't pick Asiwaju, we are not likely to win, because that was the threat at the time. But President Buhari was reported to have stood his position and maintained that that is not right. Muslim ticket or Christian ticket is not good for the country at this moment, and he chose the other way. As a matter of fact, he told Asiwaju to bring a candidate. Funny enough, to again differ with what my senior brother here said about winning, and that the northern voters, they are very probably sentimental about that. The choice of Professor Yemi Osinbajo at the time was to be interpreted as spelling doom for Buhari, because Professor Yemi at the time was not an active politician. In fact, he was reported to have said he was even planning to appear in Supreme Court the next day. For a matter, a pastor, a non-active politician, and from the southwest where President Buhari needed the votes in the first place to win, because all through these years he's been contesting, he has always had his votes from the north. He badly needed the vote from the south. He chose the right thing. Eisenhower said, any political party that does not have its policy rooted in the understanding of advancing a cause that is right and that is moral, that political party is not a political party, but merely a conspiracy to seize power. You see, at every given time in political history, you need to make a decision on what is right. Now, in this scenario, I give you an instance. The myth behind the need to choose a Muslim candidate is that if you don't do that, the northern Muslim voters will not vote for that candidate. That is a creation or a notion that exists in the imagination of politicians who have interests, but it does not resonate with the conviction of the voters. Because historically, from 1999 till today, nobody has won election without the support and the vote of the northern voters, and especially the northern Muslim voters. They chose Jonathan over Buhari in 2011. They chose Jonathan over Atiku in 2011. If they were choosing along religious lines, they would have gone for either of these two. The northern voters vote on the basis of political party conviction or interest. The idea that they are being roped into saying that they will not vote if you choose a vice presidential candidate who is a Christian is a creation of the imagination of politicians who particularly have interest in this game, but not necessarily a reflection of the votes of the people. Otherwise, the Islamic clerics, if you look at last week, they have cautioned against a same faith-based ticket. If you look at the newspaper last week throughout Thursday, 75% of the newspaper tore along the same line. Prominent members of the government also advised that you have to balance the ticket. Now, even political parties that we consider mushroom, they are balancing the ticket.
So, you have resigned your membership of the All Progressives Congress based on this.
Yeah.
Why have you done that?
Well, principally my participation and activities in APC has always been that of projecting and defending the interests of the party. So one way or the other, if I stay in the party, I will be confronted with having to make a comment one way or the other and to defend that. And since it's a conviction that I have, and I feel that that runs against the principle that I also dear, and especially at this time of our national life where we should be moving towards uniting our people. Mm-hmm. If I stay in the party, then I will be like agitators in a political party. And what I do is I give my all in everything I do. And that's why those who have seen how, and let me even say something that is very intriguing, because somebody in our party was saying that, don't you think this is bigotry? I say, if this is bigotry, can you help interpret one fact? That I chose to support Asiwaju over Professor Yemi Osinbajo in the primaries. And Professor Yemi Osinbajo is a pastor, is a Christian, just like me. But I chose to support him. And I chose to support him over other Christians in the political party. Because it is purely on the basis of performance principle and all. But when you come to the national sphere, a governing party must be a party that will lead by example. And when they took that decision, I felt I should do the honorable thing. Rather than becoming a cry baby, let me just resign from the party. And I'm happy with my decision.
Well, there has been a lot of, will I say, opinion and articles on this particular issue, the running mate. And one of the most interesting that I have seen was the article written by Mr. Azu Ishekwene, who is the editor of Leadership Newspapers, editor-in-chief. Did you see that article? I do not know if you had a chance to look at it. It talked about how the running mate has become an albatross to the APC. Did you see the article?
Yes.
Did you see the article? No. Just check in. And
right.
Quite a number of things that he said in that article. And part of it is that, he says the choice of a running mate has become even more difficult for the presidential candidate of the APC because of how the current president has managed the religious differences in the country.
Oh, I see.
He said, let me read verbatim what he said. He says, let me be clear, Buhari did not introduce identity politics into the country, nor is identity politics a peculiarly Nigerian thing. On his watch in the last 7 years, however, ethnic and religious politics have taken on a salience and frequency hardly experienced before or even thought likely.
Right.
He also, it's a pretty extensive article, but essentially argues that the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress did not have a chance if he picked a Christian as his running mate as vice president. It was going to be a really tough decision for the APC if they had gone down the route of picking a Christian vice presidential candidate.
In other words, they choose politics over unity. That's what it means. You see, after the Civil War in 1969, in 1970, there was this national objective that was formulated. The idea behind that was to bring Nigerians into one nation and build a nation with shared prosperity. Some of the concepts in the national objective is inclusivity, it is tolerance, it is self-reliance, it is common prosperity, and diversity. Diversity.
So the question I'm going to ask you is, do you think that northern Muslims, which is the question, you have argued that they vote along interest, etc.
Right.
But do you think that in the ticket, assuming Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu had picked a vice presidential candidate who was Christian, do you think that they would have seen themselves represented on his ticket?
Yes, because what they do is they look at political party interests. They do not particularly vote along religious lines. It's the myth that politicians use. You see, it is the anti-objective of Sardona of Sokoto, Sir Ahmadu Bello. Because Sir Ahmadu Bello was the one that founded the philosophy of the Northernization. That philosophy is hinged on the belief that if you are from the north by origin, irrespective of your religion or tribe, you are one north. So they would have considered that Christian candidate as a northerner and not as a Christian northerner. And historically, by their votes, they approved.
This is in spite of all that has been going on in the north in the last couple of years and the extensive divisions that have flared up,
right,
and the suspicion that now currently reigns between northern Christians and northern Muslims. I'm sure you must have seen a lot of the controversy from farmer herders crisis to the plots to take over land, etc., etc.
Right.
Do you think that still remains as people still seeing themselves as northerners?
I honestly believe, and let me tell you, people don't vote because of the vice president. Look at, I gave you an example of Professor Yemi Osinbajo. If we are to go by that, then APC will not have won the election in 2015. Because he was a zero politician at the time.
Okay, let me come to Mr. Mwaza now. This certainly, I mean, people like, there are lots of people. He is representative of a class of people who are certainly going to be feeling very offended by this selection.
Absolutely.
And it's going to be, for a number of people, they believe it's going to even drive a wedge of suspicion even deeper. The APC had a problem